right, man. Like I said, I wanted to talk because me and my buddy, we did an episode, or we just recorded something just recently, different, talking about country. We're both fans of good older country, some of the good newer stuff. It was just something to do different. And I was like, man, who can I get on here that I know like some country from the metal world? And I thought of a few people, and I know you like some. I don't know, the depths of it or anything like that, but I figured you could at least contribute a little bit to go into it. And, you got the new album coming out and everything else, so.
I'm a fanatic, man. I'm a country fanatic, to be honest.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Well, then, yeah, man, let's dive into that, I guess, first, and then we can go into the Spirit Adrift stuff.
Cool.
When did you start listening to country? Was it always there, or was that something you picked up like later on?
It was always there because I grew up in the South, but I didn't. For a long time, I, like many people, heard the country that was on the radio, like going from the 90s into the early 2000s. And man, there was some good stuff in the 90s. Like Dwight Yoakam's one of the best singers that ever lived.
Yeah.
John Anderson's another good 90s dude. What's his name? Vern Gosdin. That's a guy who I was kind of unaware of. Keith Whitley, he grew up playing like bluegrass in Ralph Stanley's band when he was like a child. So there was some cool stuff in the 90s, but something happened at some point. And in the 50s and 60s, the Nashville sound was turning a lot of people off. And the people that ended up rebelling against that were dudes like Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and people like that. And then I think the Nashville sound hit like an all-time low going into the 2000s with like pop country. I think it was maybe Tom Petty that just called it like pop music, bad pop music with a fiddle, right?
Yeah, right.
So I would hear that stuff like, I'm not going to name any names, but just radio 2000s country. And I was like, this is the worst music ever made. And I still feel that way.
Yeah.
But then like, oddly enough, I remember reading an interview with someone who's a good friend now, Jeff Morgan. He plays in that band Wake from Little Rock, RWAKE. And he was talking about the heaviness of Hank Williams Sr., just the heaviness of the subject matter, and how heavy is kind of more about an attitude and a state of mind more than anything. And that really stuck with me. And then I had a friend named Lane, who is a total wild, just a wild man. Like the wild, he's cool now. He's a Navy JAG officer now, actually. But at the time, he was like a state champion level wrestler in Oklahoma and a Golden Gloves boxer and just like a total wild man. And he kept trying to get me into what I would call like real country. The thing that did it that I remember distinctly, like he was playing in Black Oak, Arkansas and stuff. So like hard rock with the sort of southerny thing. And I was into that. I was always into Lynyrd Skynyrd. They've always been one of my favorite bands, and Creedence and stuff like that. So the thing that bridged the gap there was Waylon Jennings. I mean, I probably specifically the song "Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way?" Because it's heavy. It's got like a lot of that is because of Richie Albright, the drummer. He was like a really heavy rock oriented drummer.
Got the drive to it.
Exactly. And I was like, okay. I distinctly remember Waylon being, we would drive around. My friend Lane had like a powder blue, I want to say 80s Cadillac, like a big 4-door coupe with like a train horn on it. And I'm pretty sure he had like just the greatest hits Waylon CD. And that's what, drinking whiskey and riding around in that Cadillac and listening to that, I was like, okay, I get it. And I was sold after that,
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, I remember that's the one thing I remember. I think last time we talked, you were wearing a Waylon hat. So I think you mentioned it then. And that's a good gateway there, like you said, because I'm the same way. Like any music I've ever liked has to have some kind of well, for the most part, a little bit of a drive to it. And that's not as much nowadays. I can do, a lot more, but back then. So any of that same kind of thing, like the outlaw type stuff, some of that did have a little bit more of that attitude that you could kind of latch onto if you like some of that heavier stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has to be heavy. Yeah, like you say, drive. You want your music to have drive. I want my music to be heavy. And as I matured, I expanded my parameters and my definition of what heavy means. Like when Hank Williams is singing about, being so lonesome he could cry, that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's like real, that's really heavy. That's heavier to me than like singing about ghouls and goblins and shit.
Right.
Quick aside though, that Waylon Jennings hat, the first time that I saw Cannibal Corpse post COVID, me and Mike, who plays drums for Spirit Adrift, we went and saw Cannibal in San Antonio, and I gave Corpse Grinder that Waylon Jennings hat because that's one of his favorites.
Oh, is it? Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Well, it's in good hands. That's cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Okay. So Waylon, that was kind of like the gateway, and then what? Did you jump into a bunch of other type of stuff similar, or what?
Yeah, Hank Williams Sr. was huge for me, like in my teenage years.
Okay.
I remember like I think I talked about this on my podcast. I was going through some like heavy stuff with a girl for a long time in high school terms for sure. And I remember like I would be running and I would listen to My War by Black Flag front to back. And then I had a Hank Williams greatest hits, which was like 30 songs. And I would listen to that front to back. And I started to really, it became obvious, Greg Ginn wrote a lot of the Black Flag lyrics, but a lot of the lyrics on My War are not that far off from what Hank Williams is singing about. It's just not knowing how to process all these negative emotions that you're feeling and being heartbroken and angry and sad and twisted up inside. I mean, that's pretty much like the theme of My War from start to finish. And yeah, listening to those two seemingly disparate, like totally different types of music, but when you put them side by side, you're like, wait, this isn't like it became really easy to connect the dots, and it goes back to like something Jimi Hendrix said, which was he wrote one happy song in his whole life, and that was Foxy Lady. And every other song he wrote was either sad or angry or trying to get something out. So yeah, Hank Williams was a big one. I remember. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you're talking about like what he's talking about there. You were kind of connecting that with like Black Flag, and you said before like the honesty and the heaviness and that kind of stuff. Like that's it's so funny because I think, and one of the reasons we did the episode was I think a lot of people when you say country music, they're like, yeah, I hear what's on the radio and it's garbage. It's pickup trucks and beer and like Friday night. You know what I mean? And it's just like, man, thinking about what was wrote about at the time, written about back then, compared to what you have now. I mean, there's a few things here and there that pop up that's good, but man, it's like so different. I think it's important for people to know, like, that's not really country, like you said. That's
right?
Like
yeah,
pop.
It's the type of stuff that you hear on the radio. For the most part, it's changing now. I would say within the last, since Sturgill Simpson came out, he just monumentally changed Nashville. But for the most part, that sort of overproduced Nashville stuff you hear on the radio, it is not art. It's not. It's a product. It's all planned out by the industry. And it's literally, they're peddling Coca-Cola. They're peddling processed sugar. It's dog shit. It's total dog shit. But, I was going to say something that happened when I was in high school is Hank 3 put out a record because Hank Williams' grandson, he sort of got swept up into that Nashville thing, and the guy's like a dyed in the wool outlaw. That all those Hank Williams Jr. 3, now there's four, right?
Yeah.
It's in their DNA. They're unique guys. They're a little bit crazy. They're like, they have that outlaw shit in their DNA, right? But he kind of got pulled into the Nashville thing. He was on a record label called Curb Records, and they were trying to sort of tame him down and stuff like that. And I think I was 16 or 17, and he put out this record called Straight to Hell, which was the first time that he was really able to do what he wanted to. And that record was like monumental. I didn't know anything.
I've never heard
about
it, man.
Oh my God. It's so good.
Straight to Hell.
I didn't know anything about cowpunk at the time. I guess that's like a subgenre. It's like sort of punk rock, sort of country. I had no idea about that. But when that Hank 3 record came out, it's like one of the most...
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I have heard this one.
It's so good, dude. It's one of the most aggressive, in your face, like real raw country records. And I feel like when Sturgill Simpson hit, especially with that Metamodern Sounds album,
hell yeah.
It's funny because all anybody sees in the industry, I was just talking to a band manager about this. All any of the industry guys see, whether it's agents or managers, they see numbers, man. They can talk all day about like, oh, I love the music you're making too. And I think some of them are sincere with that, but especially in a place like Nashville, they just see numbers. They don't really care about anything else. So when a guy like Sturgill Simpson comes in making real, honest, raw, different, artistic country music, and that blew up and did good numbers, of course, the industry is going to shift around that. And you have a producer in Nashville named Dave Cobb. He's done a ton of stuff. He did Sturgill stuff. I think he's produced Tyler Childers and
Coulter Wall.
And Jason Isbell.
Yeah.
Right. So you start hearing these records come out, even like Lainey Wilson, she's like mainstream basically at this point. She's got a song on a Dodge Ram commercial, but you hear these elements that you wouldn't hear in like the watered down radio country that I heard growing up. You hear like psychedelic sounding guitars and like rawness, like you would hear on like Redheaded Stranger by Willie Nelson. So there's definitely, I would say the Nashville thing is like in a little bit better shape than it has been probably in the past 20, 30 years. And I think Dave Cobb has a big hand in that, as does Sturgill, and obviously like Tyler Childers is giant now. Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah. I mean, hell yeah. I wish that stuff was on the radio a little bit more. You know what I mean? That's breaking through to that is tough. But yeah, I mean, yeah, when Metamodern music came out, that was, that's still one of my favorite all times. You know what I mean? I was trying to come up with like a decade list, and I remember that was on there for like non-metal stuff. But shit, even with metal, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, put it with everything, you know what I mean? Southeastern by Isbell, you know.
He's great.
Purgatory by Childers. They're just huge. To me, you know, we'll look back on those and they'll be future, you know, classics. I got it.
Absolute classics, man. And the first show actually that I saw after I got sober, it was this was 2015. I don't have the date in front of me, but I bet it was within the first month of getting sober when I'm first writing like the first 2 Spirit Adrift songs. I went and saw Sturgill Simpson twice in a row. One show was in Tucson, Arizona at the Rialto, and it was energy on 10. Like he came out, played the first song, and it was one of the most like rabid crowd responses I've ever heard. Last song, he was playing so hard. They were so pumped that he broke every string off of his guitar. Like just incredible. And then the next show, it was 2 nights later in Tucson, in Flagstaff up north. And it was a smaller venue. And he played the same set, but it was completely different. It was such a more reserved, subtle, quieter, emotional thing. and just like responding to the energy. And both shows were equally awesome, but that Flagstaff one was just like, it was magical. It was so personal, up close, intimate. And he got done playing and people cleared out. And I was like, what's going on? And he's up there on stage, like wrapping cables and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I walked up to the front of the stage and put my fist out for a fist bump. And he just looked up and fist bumped me. And I swear to God, I had like a jolt of electricity go down my arm, like all the way to my heart. I swear. Dude's got something going on.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's awesome. I didn't get to see him until it was a bigger venue. And it was still amazing. I mean, he was kind of jamming out a little bit more than I think he in the past. And it was great. I mean, I saw a similar experience was I saw Tyler Childers back. It was like the Purgatory tour. So it was still a small venue. And then it was like the next night or the next Saturday, I went and seen Coulter. And it was the same kind of thing. Tyler, it was just like super rowdy in a great way. And then I went and seen Coulter, and it was just, everyone was kind of like just in awe, you know, just like taking in those stories, that voice. I mean, he wasn't really trying to do anything other than just stand up there and like just play those songs. But it was just like that special energy in the room, special moment. You could just, you know, just that vibe. It was there.
That's awesome.
It was great. Yeah.
Did Tyler still have, it was Purgatory tour, so he probably had long hair and a beard.
Yeah. It was that right dude, around that time.
he had like the 1,000-yard stare at that point. He was going through something, man.
Yeah. I know. But anyway, so those are some of those newer ones. What were some other big, like, country's weird, you know, especially the older stuff as far as like talking about full albums sometimes, because it's like, you know, especially if I came into country later and you've already got 50 to 100 albums by like, I mean, how many does Willie Nelson have? How many does, you know what I'm saying? They all have. I
got like 60 Waylon Jennings records. That's the most of any artist that I own.
Yeah.
Is Waylon for sure.
Like for Waylon, I like my favorites, and I don't know a lot of them. You know, obviously the hits, and then like old Waylon, and Good Night something. What am I thinking of here?
Yeah, so
it's an early one.
I feel like he's the same as any artist, is that there's a period where they're at their peak.
Yeah.
And anything between that period. So for Pink Floyd, for example, for me, it would be like the Metal album through Animals. Or like they just couldn't miss, you know. And Waylon, I think it probably started somewhere around Honky Tonk Heroes. That's the album that Billy Joe Shaver wrote every song.
Yeah,
and
okay.
He kept trying to take the songs to Waylon, and he was getting blown off. And finally, he like confronted him in his own office in front of a bunch of people. He was like, "You're going to listen to my songs, or I'm going to kick your ass right here," you know. And it worked out. But yeah, some of these older dudes, it's like the albums. The way that it worked is they would only really try to have one hit and then just put out a whole album, and maybe the other 9 songs aren't as good.
Right.
But I think Waylon was immune to that for the most part. Almost all of his albums are solid start to finish. I love Dreaming My Dreams by Waylon.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
That one, Honky Tonk Heroes, Dreaming My Dreams. And then you have the classic, the greatest hits with like the foil cover with the cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, David Allan Coe too. Before I get canceled, we all know he has sketchy, crazy, off the wall shit, and his
said
son,
the same thing on our episode.
yeah, his son wrote a great thing about it on Facebook. His son thoroughly dislikes him, but he wrote a great thing about it. I'm not going to get into all that shit, but he's got 2 records that are just insane. It came out within a year of each other. Long-haired rednecks, one of them. That just like, he's just such a good songwriter. He's such a good songwriter. Whatever you think about him outside of that, like, and I saw David Allan Coe when I was in high school. Me and my friend Lane, who I talked about, we drove through a damn tornado to go see this guy.
Yeah. And
it is the worst show I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Worse than any like middle school talent show.
Or?
His kid claims that he was on acid the whole time he was in the band, literally every day. like his son joined the band when he was 16. He does that Cocaine and Rhinestones podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Tyler Coe.
Yeah. I've listened to that.
I have a really funny story about him. I wonder, I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus here, but a friend of mine was at a restaurant with him and had just met him, and they were mutual fans of each other. They were talking, having a great conversation, and he checked his phone and like put it back, and he kept talking, checked his phone again. And they were like, "Do you need to take that?" He's like, "Oh no, my dad had a heart attack." And they were like, "Shit, do you need to go?" And he's like, "Nah, fuck him." So,
oh man,
that shows you their relationship.
Right.
But who else? Merle Haggard, he's got a great discography. You know, most of his songs are solid.
See it, but I'm representing
beautiful.
it today.
Beautiful.
You know, I just listened to a podcast about him this year. You ever check out? It's called Country X. I don't know if you ever pay attention. There's a Facebook website, Saving Country Music. I usually get a lot of good recommendations from that one for as far as new stuff.
I've seen that site. Yeah,
good articles and shit. This guy does it, and he kind of dives into like cool folklore around like, you know, the old stuff. He's got a good one about Waylon, actually. His connection to the Cocaine Bear.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Like he ended up, which is funny because Waylon's history with cocaine, you know, and then he ends up with the stuffed life, you know, full size cocaine bear at some point, which he didn't realize. I don't know. It's a funny story.
Amazing.
But then he's got one about Haggard, and it's like running down whether he actually escaped from jail like 17 times, because that's like the rumor or whatever, that he escaped 17 times. I think it ended up being actually like 6 times. But yeah, Country X, it's cool. But it made me just, I don't know, maybe want to listen to some more Haggard. Just
that's rad,
man.
I got his book right here. I worked his last show ever in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was like, I was still drinking at the time. So, I mean, it was kind of like perfect environment to be in. But after sound check, his son, Ben, like the whole band left the stage. And Merle's son, Ben, who's playing lead guitar, he played guitar literally from sound check until doors nonstop. Just like one of the best guitarists I've ever seen. Yeah. It was incredible, man. So I got to tell Merle just like, good set, and he said thanks. Awesome, man. It was crazy. I got all these guys' autobiographies and everything, and you know, you watch Mike Judge did that show Tales from the Tour Bus, the first season, like where he basically talks to people who were there on tour with Waylon, George Jones, Johnny Paycheck.
I'm gonna write that down.
And then they animate these crazy stories that these people are telling. And those guys, to me, you know, the OG gangster rap dudes are crazy. The hair metal guys are crazy, but to me, the old country guys were like next level. Just like didn't care.
Oh man, I know. Yeah, some of the stuff sometimes I forget, but it's like, I mean, like the old Waylon stories. Like, what was the one where he was like had the drug bust? Were they recording an album? Yeah, and he got busted with or I don't think he got busted, but he had a ton of cocaine on him. Or
they pulled a whole like look over here distraction routine on the DEA in the middle of the studio, and he snuck off and or somebody snuck off with a big old bag and flushed it down the toilet while the feds were in the control room. They were pretending, I think, to like be really hyper focused on a vocal take and going back and forth just as a total distraction.
Yeah.
So that somebody could like kick one bag. I think they kicked into a hole between like the wall and the floorboards. And then they flushed another one, and the feds heard the toilet flush. And Waylon was like, well, I guess you guys are shit out of luck or something. But then while the court case was still pending, he tracked that song, Don't You Think This Outlaw Bit's Done Got Out of Hand, where he literally tells the story about flushing cocaine while the feds are there. But because they didn't have any physical evidence, and because he's Waylon Jennings, you know, pretty sure he pretty much got off with that, you know?
Yeah. That's so funny. That's so cool though. That's another thing I love, like someone like him. And I know country is different, you know, you don't always sing your own songs and things like that. That's just like the tradition in country. But like guys like Haggard, where he was like writing most of his own shit, at least early on, and someone like him who's like, that guy's been in jail. He's writing these lyrics, and you know, I don't know what, you know, every song and what's fully real and what's not, but these guys have those like actual life experience to draw from, you know, which is something I think a lot of people respect from metal or any music where it's authentic and not just like 5 people writing it in a room or whatever. So I think it's just like another connection where it's like that draws me to it, you know what I mean? Especially dudes who are like really lived it.
Yeah, it's real, man. And I like old school like gangster rap for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know, like 3 6 Mafia, you listen to that and you're like, wow, you know, and you believe them. Same deal.
Yeah, hell yeah. What about you mentioned Willie? That's another big favorite one of mine is him, and then the album he did with Waylon and Willie. I mean, that's just like a great one too.
I got that as well. WW2 is not as good. But the first one, it's kind of got a leathery type embossed cover on it. And yeah, Chris Christopherson wrote almost everything on that. And what's the song? Take back the weed, take back the whiskey, baby.
Yeah.
Take back the pills, take back the cocaine too. Your love is all that I'm after. I can get it off on you. I mean, that's genius. It's genius. And they got a song about how every country song is pretty much the same song. And you know, let's settle down. Like, don't ever cuss that fiddle unless you want that fiddle out of tune. That player there in trouble ain't nothing but another side of you. And they talk about like, all right, chill out. Let's just keep stealing each other's songs and everything's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and it's fun, man. It's very self-aware, that whole album. You know?
Right.
But it's got like real serious stuff on it too about the Vietnam War and all that. And Chris was in a unique position to talk about that because he had been there and done that. And I don't know if this is true, but there was some story about like being in an awards show and Toby Keith told Chris Christopherson like, hey, why don't you lay off the hippie shit tonight or something? And he like
really
put him in a chokehold and put him up against the wall and was like, until you've gone overseas and watched people die and you fight for this country, you don't tell me what the fuck to do, boy, you know?
Oh, that's funny. I got to look that up, man. I hope that's true.
Who knows if that's true, but yeah, I hope it is.
That's awesome. Any other like big albums you would point someone to? Like let's say someone's into metal and they're like, okay, I'm going to check something out. We mentioned a couple good Waylon ones. Would you say like just do the greatest hits, or would you say like go with an album? Or just a couple good albums anyways.
If you're into metal, I would say start with Straight to Hell by Hank 3. I think came out in 04 or 05. Start there. Because that's a pretty obvious way to bridge the gap between the aggression of metal and the country stuff.
Yeah.
So I would start there, Straight to Hell. For Waylon, yeah, I probably would go with that Greatest Hits first, or maybe Honky Tonk Heroes, because that one's pretty aggressive musically,
right?
As far as country goes.
Yeah.
George Jones, like old George Jones, just because it's real raw. And yeah, he has a record called Alone Again, and every song is just about him being a piece of shit, basically.
There's a guy with stories too.
Yeah. Merle Haggard, you know, there's a Merle Haggard record called Serving 190 Proof that has like Thin Lizzy harmonies on it. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, for newer stuff, Tyler Childers' Purgatory, definitely. And Sturgill Simpson. I like the bluegrass stuff he's been doing.
Oh, yeah.
Cutting Grass. But I also really like meta modern sounds and country music. That's a good one. Yeah, you know what's a good way to bridge metal and country too is that Pride and Glory band that Zakk Wylde did.
Oh, I don't know that one.
You should check that out. They only did one record, I think, but it's like super heavy Southern rock bordering on metal with banjo and fiddle and stuff, and it actually works. Yeah, Pride and Glory. It came out in the 90s.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out. That's cool. that just made me think of a weird one that I was into last year. It's a little bit, maybe more closer to bluegrass, folk, dark folk, but it's in the realm. A little bit of country vibes and stuff like that. But this guy, his name is Ryan Clackner, and he does a few bands. One. I gotta look this up. There's two that are really cool where he mixes like black metal with that other stuff.
Is it the guy from Panopticon by chance?
No, it's not that.
That guy's name's Austin or something, right?
Right. Okay. No, this is a little bit different. It's a different dude. He's from the South somewhere, I think like Tennessee or something like that. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's super raw and lo-fi. Okay, Primeval Well, and then Crestfallen Dusk. That's the two, but it's real lo-fi. I'm hit or miss with black metal. Like I like a lot of it, and a lot of it I'm not that into. Okay,
yeah,
but it just the way it ties the two together, it's really cool. It's just something different. But
nice.
Anyways, maybe for somebody else out there who's like, you could flirt with it a little bit, but you don't want to go all the way in, you know.
And then Taka, however you say that, they have that's a Norwegian black metal band. They have a song with that like banjo break when the banjo comes in.
That's cool. I mean, banjo in general, man. Yeah. All right. I'm trying to think. I think I covered most of the country types. Anything else country wise? Big old favorites or something like anything like that? Other albums or?
Yeah. I mean, those David Allan Coe albums, Long Haired Redneck, Rides Again. Merle Haggard, Serving 190 Proof, and his older stuff as well. George Jones, I Am What I Am, and Alone Again. And then the 3 Waylon records I mentioned. Talked about the newer stuff. I can't think anything else off the top of my head for now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, cool. Like I said, we went hard into like mostly newer stuff when we were doing our part of it, but we didn't talk too much about the old stuff, so I'm glad we kind of went into all that because that stuff's huge. Oh, what about Cash? Did you get into Cash at all?
Yeah, honestly, not as much as a lot of the other guys. I love him and respect him. I've read all his books and watched every documentary that I can, and he's an Arkansas guy, so that makes him close to my heart. But I never found myself listening to him as much as the other guys. I do love him. I love everything he did and everything he stood for. You know.
Yeah. That was an early favorite for me. Was Cash and the San Quentin live album. I mean,
I had that.
Ran that one down.
Yep.
But all right, man. So then we've got the new Spirit Adrift album coming out. We talked about, I think every other year, other albums. I didn't hit you up on the last one just because I was like, I got to give this guy a break. I don't want to be hounding him every year. But, I mean, the last one was fucking phenomenal, you know.
Thank you, man.
My son, he's 4. I think, when did that come out? What year was that?
2020, October. So like middle of COVID.
Yeah. So he was probably like, about 2 or whatever by then. But I just remember, I don't know if it was Ride Into the Light or one of them. It was like his first headbang that he did was when that album was playing. So I got a special. That's a special album now, but he loves it. But anyways, now you've got the new one coming out. Obviously, you've done stuff in between there, with the EP and the covers and all that. The singles are awesome. I know with Enlightened, it was like you were talking like. That one was a feel good. You wanted it to be like uplifting, feel good album. For the new one, are you going down that one again, or is there a full different vibe? Because I've only heard the singles. I haven't heard the whole thing yet.
Oh man, I got to get you the record. I figured maybe you had.
When it was with $20, I don't think. What is it now? You're on
Century Media.
Century. I don't think I've got a Century contact for some reason. We just never.
Okay, our publicist is actually, she's independent. I'll send you the album. When we get off of here.
Sweet.
It's totally different, dude.
Okay.
It's
I mean, the singles feel already a little different. I mean,
and a lot of people tell me like, oh, I can't believe this whole album is all about death and mourning and grief and not all that, because the music is like so triumphant. So that's cool. I think I think one of the things that defines Spirit Adrift and possibly lends the project some unique identity is the dichotomy between the pain and the triumph and, you know, the light and the dark and that sort of thing. So a lot of times when I'm working on something, and to me, it just seems like, oh, like it's just all about grief and mourning and stuff. Maybe the music isn't coming out that way to other people. So yeah, there's always that dichotomy. And, you know, I sort of abandoned nihilism in my 20s. Like,
yeah,
that shit never did anything for me, you know?
Yeah, right.
I had some good times, like going super, like 2012, a lot of weirdos thought the world was ending.
Yeah.
And so I just acted accordingly and like just threw caution to the wind. And that was like a fun year, certain aspects of it. But long term, like that nihilistic shit just it will not get you through life on a long scale, you know? At least that's not a life that I want to live. So
yeah,
with Spirit Adrift, like even the most depressing or darkest, whatever subjects, I'm never approaching them with like, we're doomed and there's no hope and there's no way out of this. Because like there's plenty of metal bands that do that. If that's what you want, there's a bazillion bands you can listen to. And it wouldn't be sincere if I approached it that way.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to find a way through, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's cool. So the new one, it's got those darker themes, but it's still going to be, there's some light in there. It's going to be, you know, have that kind of feel to it.
Yeah. I mean, even the most grueling song on there emotionally, you know, These Two Hands, it's track 4. It's pretty brutal, but at the end, you know, I think the last lyric is like, I have to believe it gets better.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's like, and that's my approach to going through really miserable stuff is like, this is going to get better at some point, right? Like, even if you don't really believe it, you just have to like, keep telling yourself, you know, cause I like, for the most part, I like being alive these days. I didn't always, and, you know, the thing that informed this album more than anything was just watching people die constantly, man. You know, we lost our dog early 2020. That sort of like seemed like that was the first domino for us, at least. It was just like, you know, mostly friends and bands are in the touring industry. And I know a lot of people died from COVID. But the people that I lost in my life, it was almost exclusively mental health issues and drugs and suicide and accidental overdose and stuff like that. You know, it's like we were told that we were not essential, and you can't do that. Like, who didn't they think that telling a huge chunk of humanity that they're not essential might have some fucking consequences? And so I had to watch for 3 years and you know, we all have personal responsibility, right? I'm not denying that, but
sure.
Yeah, I watched a lot of people die, man. A lot of people I loved just didn't make it through the last few years. And
yeah,
I made an album about it, you know?
Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it makes me think of someone like, Trevor from Black Dahlia. Like, you know, exactly. I mean, that, you know, seems like that was just being locked in for like 2 years and not being able to do your normal stuff. That hit a lot of people pretty hard. And yeah, man.
Yeah, that was a big one for me, man. I was in Italy when the news came down about that. And man, I called Nick from Power Trip. I don't know why. We were at a venue called Bloom in Italy, and Nirvana, Kurt wrote the song In Bloom about that venue, apparently being in bloom, right? And yeah, our drummer showed me the news, and I had to go outside and I was like walking, just trying to figure my shit out. And I called Nick from Power Trip. Again, I don't know why, just seemed like the right guy to call. And dude, he picked up immediately. And we just talked through it. Cause man, the last time I saw Riley from Power Trip, they were on tour with Black Dahlia. That was in Flagstaff. And I had seen Trevor a couple times since then. And his birthday was like 5 days before that happened. I talked to him on his birthday and would have never known, man. And I went through a lot of those through the past 3 years of just like, man, my friend Big John, I did a whole podcast episode about him. Like I was talking to him the day that happened. Apparently he texted me out of the blue, and, you know, I've lost a lot of people, you know, been losing people since I was 4 months old. But when it's somebody that's too young and it's somebody that you just talked to and they were just alive and everything seemed fine, and then they're gone, that is hard to, it's not that I'm like, I mean, I'll always be sad about it, but I don't find myself like moping about it. It's just like surreal. It'll always be surreal. Like it's very hard to convince myself, all right, I'm never talking to Big John again. I'm never talking to Chip and Riley. Like it's just really strange, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. That's cool that you, you know, just being able to kind of get that all into like, into the album, but without like making it a super just dark down sort of a thing, you know, just still having those, like, you can listen to it, you can probably feel that stuff, but still kind of, like you said, come out on the other end. So that's cool, man. I feel like that's what I like about, you know, especially the last few of those, like just having those vibes where it's like takes you from one place, but you're still ending up feeling good, you know, about life.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's just how it comes out, you know. I just don't feel hopeless anymore. Some days I do, but again, I just tell myself, like, I don't ever let myself have 2 days in a row of feeling sorry for myself or hopeless or whatever. I'll have one and I'll be like, all right, bitch, like tomorrow this is over.
What do you do? What do you do to kind of like zap out of stuff? Like you exercise, or do you, I don't know, write a song? Like what's
man, it's all day long something. Yeah, playing guitar always helps. And I forget that. And that's actually what was the catalyst for like the big long 2-year writing process that created, you know, Forge Your Future and the 2 songs from 20 Centuries Gone and the new album was COVID lockdowns. I was like freaking out just like everybody else and had to kind of slap myself and say, dude, pick up the guitar, you know?
Yeah.
Always therapy. It literally has never failed to make me feel better. So that's one thing. Yeah. Being creative, creating something. I feel like, you know, God, whatever you want to call him, is creative, and he wants us to be creative too, to create and not destroy, you know?
Yeah.
And then, dude, yeah, it's just it's going to be an everyday thing for the rest of my life. And the quicker you can accept that, the better you feel about it. So I pray, I meditate, I focus on my sobriety and recovery. I've got like some of the best people I've ever met in that community. You know, anybody's just a phone call away. I love talking to other musicians and other people that tour. We're out here on 11 something acres in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And going outside is just like, so obvious, but for
not
some
to
reason,
a lot of people, man.
Yeah. And we like have this internal urge to resist that sometimes. And I think COVID, I don't know, man. I don't want to go off and say some weird QAnon shit, but I don't know. I feel like we're being conditioned to want to sit and stare at screens and not go outside and not talk to our neighbor and not see what we have in common with the people out there. You know, that's important. That's all important. And exercise. I'm like addicted to violent exercise. You know?
Yeah. I'm the same way, man. I guess it was a little after COVID, but I did the home gym thing. You know, I started getting everything like power rack. I got the, you know, just heavy weights for home, got rid of my gym membership. And same way, dude, like the exercise, if it's a bad day at work, I'm coming home and I'm lifting. But I went too hard, messed up both shoulders.
Oof.
Either like a labrum tear or something, rotator or whatever. So I've been having to like not do any heavy weights, just do like rehab for it, you know, basically.
I'm in the same boat, man.
Are you?
Yeah. I've destroyed my left shoulder years ago and just never did anything about it. So it's okay now, but I have So the L5S1 disc is the most commonly injured disc, or the one that most commonly needs surgery. And it's been an issue for me for a while. And I think it's mostly from touring, like lifting stuff. You never have enough room to lift the right way, whether you're in the trailer or some hallway that's like overpacked, or backstage getting around people. So it's been screwed up for years. But the last time I injured it was like, I thought it was like done. I thought I'm like borderline paralyzed from the waist down, or I have to get surgery or something. And fortunately, I've been doing physical therapy and been on medication and steroids and shit. I saved my steroids for the European tour. So that I could just fully kick everybody's ass, you know? But now I'm doing physical therapy. I just got discharged yesterday, actually. So I'm just doing shit at home now, trying to get myself right for tour. Do you ever like hang just from like a bar? You ever do any of that? Yeah. Okay. It's good. I do occupational therapy is my main job. Similar to physical therapy or whatever. So I've been trying to just rehab it myself, get the shoulders back, which it's working. So I'm hoping I'm going to be picking up the weights again soon. Keep at it, man. It sucks. It's not fun. It's been driving me nuts because, like you said, you have those certain things that give you that release, that just kind of lift your mood. And working out's always been one. Shooting a bow is another one, and I haven't been able to do that, but anyways, enough of that. But yeah, man, so I feel that being outside, any of that kind of stuff. What about, I think last time we talked, we were talking about things that like, I want to say like inspire you a little bit that weren't music. Like I feel like books, there was a lot of like bigger books you were talking about at the time. I want to say like we talked about Goggins and I don't know. I forget what else you were mentioning, but I remember some inspirational books. Anything this year or recently, or maybe it was inspired in the album, or maybe just recently that have been big for you? Yeah, I read Rick Rubin's book. The album was already finished by then, and it's all just kind of reaffirming beliefs and knowledge that I've already feel like I've kind of gathered. But that was good. I like Rick Rubin. I just actually ordered Quincy Jones' book as well. He has a book about the creative process, and Quincy Jones to me is the best record producer ever. So I'm excited to read that. Man, I just try to like stay open to anything, whether it's filmmakers. I'm not so much into. There's certain art forms I'm less interested in, like not really into musicals or opera or that sort of thing. But I like artwork. I like painting and stuff like that. Just staying open to any and all sources of inspiration, whether it's in the natural world or just other creative human beings that are making stuff that I like, that moves me. William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist and French Connection and Sorcerer, which is his most underrated movie. Our song Sorcerer's Fate isn't about a sorcerer. It's about William Friedkin. Okay. So he's a huge inspiration. Like Coen Brothers, anybody, man. Even like martial artists, you can watch them get into a flow state and you're like, man, I want to be there. You can be in a flow state writing music too. Right. Yeah. I'm like constantly trying to keep my antenna up. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I know I've listened to at least a handful of your episodes like that you've been doing for your podcast. And I know you mentioned, so there's a book or two on there that I know I wrote down, but yeah, man, the podcast has been great. The podcast has been awesome. I've definitely been enjoying that. Like I said, at least 4 or 5 of those, and it's different than most of what you're gonna get. I feel like it's just cool. I don't know how you do it just on your own like that. Like anytime I have to record something, like maybe it's an intro to something, an interview, 2 minutes of talking by myself, I hate it. It just never feels natural. But man, you do like an exceptional job with that. Thanks. Yeah, I have false starts sometimes where I'll start going and I'll literally just be like this fucking sucks, and I'd stop and start again. But usually once I get going, I'm just kind of like, I grew up watching this dude, Joe Bob Briggs. He's like a horror movie host.
Oh, okay.
He had a show. The guy is crazy. His life is like, he needs to write a book because he used to travel all over Europe. He's like highly educated guy, but he plays this kind of redneck everyman character. But he had a show on TNT back in the day called Monster Vision.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I just, dude, and I was young watching these super fucked up movies, and it would go to break and he would give you like factoids about the movie, and he's drinking beer and he's like getting drunker as the thing goes on. But just an infinite well of knowledge about the filmmaking business and about it, like the minutia details of all these weird movies he's showing. And that show got canceled after a while, but he came back like 5-6 years ago. Maybe longer now. He's on Shudder now.
Oh, okay.
He'll do these double features, and every 20-30 minutes it cuts to him, and he'll tell you something about the movie, and there's no commercials. Sweet. So it's great. Yeah. But he's the first guy that I ever watched do that. And I think I overlooked what a significant impact that guy had on my personality, just being like totally he made it cool to be like super educated about something. Not dork shit like math and stuff like that. Like, there's cool stuff.
Right.
But like he's a big inspiration for that. And obviously like Bill Burr has the podcast where it's just him.
Great at that.
And somebody that's highly underrated at the solo podcast is Theo Vaughn. That guy is, he plays like a goofball or whatever, but that guy is like highly, highly intelligent.
Yeah.
So I just watch those guys do it. And Joey Diaz, he's another one. And I try not to talk about stuff that, I don't talk about anything unless I really care about it, unless I feel like I really know about it. Because everybody's a foreign policy expert when there's certain things going on, or a viral expert when that's going on, or what. And that shit, there's nothing more annoying than the keyboard expert,
No, it feels super real. Like you're talking about, like, I love how you mix it all up. I love how you've got, you talk about something new that's coming out, random topics that it's somehow always interesting, And I get jealous, man. Just you got a good way of talking, especially like when you're talking about the music. It's always maybe because you're a musician yourself, you're picking up on all the little things that somebody else isn't. But not to blow smoke up your ass, but I mean, it's just for anyone out there that hasn't listened to it or watched it on YouTube, man, it's super cool. Hope you keep doing it.
I enjoy it. I don't enjoy other things that I've tried and that I've been told to try, to like, do more social media, like. Most of that stuff I can't stand, but hey, man, you're good at this too. Like, you're one of the people that I don't dread talking to when I do these
That's good.
press cycles. So.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't want to. I figured I wasn't going to even go too deep on the new stuff, because like you got this podcast going, and I know you said you're going to do an episode on that coming up. Like, you're probably getting asked those questions a million times. So
yeah, this was fun, man. I appreciate it.
Cool, dude. Well, yeah, I'll let you go on that, because we're getting to be about an hour here, man. But thanks for doing it. I hadn't talked to you for a while. I think the last time I saw you was I was going to do an interview. I did one with Matt Harvey. You guys were touring. It must have been Gatecreeper at the time, maybe, from Exhumed.
Would have been, yeah.
And I remember I was doing it with him, like just in the back green room, and you were just passed out.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I think the other bands were playing. It was super loud and chaotic in there. I was talking with him, and you were just over there sleeping, so I didn't get a chance to say what's up. But
oh man, yeah, I had no idea you were even there.
Yeah. I think that was probably maybe the last time, or unless maybe we talked after. I don't know. But anyways, man, I appreciate it. It's always cool. It's always fun, and I'll be watching the podcast, and I'll be listening to the new album, man, for sure.
Cool,
let my
Jason.
son listen to it too.
Yeah, good to see you, man. I'll send it to you as soon as we get off of here.
Sweet. I'll listen to it today then. I appreciate it, man.
Killer.
All right, dude. Well, good luck with it all coming out and everything.
Thanks, man. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, same to you, man. Later.